Well, thank you for coming out. Obviously, us advertising this as a dry venue worked wonders. So this isn't one of our normal conferences where we have lots of people making very long speeches and you drop off. We've got a slightly different approach this year. So hopefully you've seen the agenda on the tables and you've seen it by email or on social media. The plan is we've got a few discussions and we're going to have them by table and then feedback and just give the leadership team, the national executive, some really good feedback on what we're doing. So hopefully we can all get stuck into that. But in order to kick it off, I'm down to kind of set the scene, if you like. And I've done a bit of a briefing that's on the table, so I'm going to kind of talk to that. So it's there for you to refer to if you want or to take away, and hopefully it's quite helpful. Some of it you will see is very similar to content in an article that's just been published in a book by Gary Tregidga over there for 10 quid. And this is, I've looked at the last 10 years basically just to set the scene of what's actually been happening and what we've been doing. Obviously 2014, MK produced our booklet towards a National Assembly of Cornwall. We've updated that one a couple of times and we've now got a more revised version again since we took the decision to campaign explicitly for a Cornish Parliament. We've always been campaigning for parliamentary powers, but we've just made it obvious we're talking about a Parliament and not saying we want a Cornish Assembly but with powers like in Scotland. Just let's keep it simple, that was the plan. And while we've been banging that drum, bang, 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 rest of what's been happening is the whole context of devolution has been discussed by a lot of others as accommodations with local government. What can the council do a little bit extra? So it's... Oh, so it's your phone for a minute there. So. Yeah. So we're in this context at the moment that what we're trying to talk about is devolution. Most people are talking about local government changes, which we consider something totally different. Again, back in 2014, we were in the position after the Scottish referendum vote for independence, which, as you know, was a no vote. The government then promised a fair settlement for all the parts of the United Kingdom. Then it named them all except Cornwall, as they do. And since then, they started a process of what they're calling English devolution. So like the metro mayors in places like Manchester, various other initiatives in urban areas. And what Cornwall had was a very weak accommodation that was called a devolution deal. That came after the council put together a case for Cornwall, which again, we didn't think went far enough, and the 4 MK councillors at the time, we actually moved an amendment for them to campaign for a Cornish Assembly instead. 123 members on the council, we managed to get 14 votes for that. That was us 4 and 10 others. So that was then. Obviously the devolution deal then went through, and just to remind you of what Cornwall Council got, it was the ability to franchise bus services, the opportunity to work with local health organisations to integrate health and social care. I don't know how you're going to turn that around so quickly. The Isles, we'd also been given intermediate body status over EU funding. The local enterprise partnership, the then unelected body, was given more say on local skills levels, and there was talk about integrating various things. So in terms of what it was very limited. We at the time basically said we didn't think it was devolution at all because it didn't need to go through any process in Parliament other than a rubber stamping exercise. Pretty much soon after that, the year after, that was when the UK government decided to push the Great Southwest Project. They had a meeting in Exeter University to come up with plans for Cornwall plus 3 English counties. And interestingly, it was at that meeting where Sajid Javid, the community secretary, he was asked about a local government devolution deal for all the councils in Devon and Somerset. And he actually said, For anyone who wants an ambitious deal, they're going to have a mayor. If you want an unambitious deal, and frankly the Cornwall one was not that ambitious, it didn't include any new money, had very few limited powers, and so they're the only ones that got away without having a mayor, but really, what's the point of all that? And that was from a government minister within 12 months of what they delivered to a great fanfare. Cornwall Council, they put forward a new frontiers document, again, to try and get more powers. Some of it was really good. They actually put on paper, which has been a consistent position since, Cornwall having a seat as an equal on the British and Irish Council with all the other Celtic nations and islands of the British Isles. But most of it was still just about limited accommodations. Planning is always an example we use, which I think we're going to talk about in a little while. Did they ask for control of the planning system? No. They asked for a different sort of financial support model that would allow the council to bring forward new models for new settlements called garden villages. So those of us in the St Austell area who have spent a decade fighting the awful eco-town, what they were asking for as a council was the ability to do more of the things that were upsetting people. So, yeah. But then we did get to another so-called devolution deal. This is with the Tories, with the Levelling Up agenda, their Levelling Up white paper. Cornwall's one of the named areas. And level 3, you have to have a mayor. The deal was some upfront investment and 360 million over 20 years. That's £12 million a year. In terms of powers, it was a local an adult education budget and the ability to set up a mayoral development corporation. This is again very simple. Basically, it gives the mayor the ability to push forward big developments, which again is the things we spend most of our lives opposing. So we all know what happened. A lot of opposition to the mayor, so that's fallen, and now the council is looking at a level 2 deal, which has hardly got anything in it at all. No investment fund, but you don't have to have the mayor that no one wanted. What we did as MK, we moved a motion at a recent full council in April. We went around and got people from every political group to sign up to it. And basically we argued that because of the national minority status of the Cornish, that we deserved devolution parity with Wales and Scotland, and we wanted to commence negotiations with the government for something decent. That was broadly what it was. We lost 38 votes to 36. So we supporters, we had MK, Green, every Liberal Democrat, Labour. We had all the independents bar one, and I think that one's changed his mind since, which is not very helpful. And 3 Conservatives. It was opposed by 35 Tories and 3 independents, 2 of which are non-aligned independents outside the independent group. So I think a lot of people have taken a bit of encouragement from that. I would be slightly cynical and say it's easy to get people to vote against an administration to give them a bloody nose on something, but hopefully we can actually build on that. And as we talk today about how we want to go forward with our campaigns for devolution, I thought it was worth, because we're quite confident in what we want, I think, but we still want feedback. How can we make it better? What are we doing? But I thought it was worth just checking out and giving you the background of what other political parties are proposing. So Labour, likely to be the next government, they've just published a document with the last 6 months called New Britain. They've got policies including a Council of the Nations and the Regions, House of Lords with a second chamber of the nations and the regions. However, the nations are England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, whereas the regions, I presume, are the English government regions. So at the moment, Cornwall is totally invisible. In the document, if you do the word search, Wales got mentioned 123 times, Scotland 198 times, and Cornwall? Zero, not one. I'll go on to the Lib Dems as well. Their last manifesto actually mentioned Cornwall, and it was linked to a devolution policy, but unfortunately I don't think it was strong enough, and it was a bit confusing because it was about devolving further revenue-raising powers away from Westminster to regions from Cornwall to North East England to empower groups of authorities to come together to establish devolved governance. So I think they've got work to do as well, and we should be putting pressure on them. So that's my little introduction of what's happening, has been happening, if you like, over the last few years that we've been right in the heart of, and also where I think the other parties are at the moment, and hopefully we can put pressure on them to show there's a better way.